States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Isn't it good to be a patriot after the Patriots win? I couldn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
So for all you non-football fans, if you could please join me in a moment of silence for men and women in uniform, please. Thank you. Thank them for their service. Give me a half a second here. We had some issues to deal with the town manager. Now we get through that. Adjustments to the agenda, Joe?
Yeah, Laura Reynolds was planning on coming, but she brought this Community Destination Academy program to my attention, and she wanted to discuss that with you. Were you at the meeting?
Yeah, I was at the meeting.
Yeah, so we gave you some information she had given me. So it's right there on the, yep.
Thank you. Anything else, John?
No?
You want to talk to us about this?
What's that?
You want to-
Laura's gonna come in. Laura's gonna come and talk about it, right? She said
Yeah,
she's coming in.
She said she was coming in, so.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot a pen.
I have one here if you need it.
I got it.
Don't you
Somewhere
breathe
on
on
the back.
me.
There are two others.
We're not going to have the other two selectmen here tonight. Sadly, Donnie hurt his back and won't be able to attend. And Dave is home with the flu. So you're stuck with us. I need a motion to approve the January 28th regular meeting minutes, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the January 28th, 2019 meeting minutes with any corrections or additions.
That means you'd be seconding it if you could.
I would be seconding that.
Thank
You're
you.
gonna leave room for
Any
discussion?
changes? Changes? What would you like to change?
I'd like to change John's title to town manager.
And
Oh, yeah, take out interim, thank you. Good point, I did see that too.
I was gonna say I was gonna promote him, but.
Yep. Thank you. Anything else? All in favor? So moved. Public to speak under non-agenda items. And who are you?
My name is Nate Miller. I'm Community Services Manager for Seniors Plus. I was wondering if I could speak to you tonight about the request that we sent in the end of last year, as well as the Franklin County Community and Economic Development Consortium.
Sure, go ahead. How much time do you think it'll take?
5 minutes?
Perfect.
thank you.
Thank you.
Seniors Plus is your agency on aging.
Could you leave two right here, please, and I'll make sure they get them?
Yes.
Thank you.
Our mission is to help.
And one to our town manager. Thank you.
Our mission is to help adults with disabilities and older adults be able to remain in their homes and communities as healthy and as independently as possible. In the past, we've received funding at the county level. I'm here tonight because the county has informed us to go to towns and send our request to towns. So that's what we did in November of last year. In your packet, you have a summary of the services that we provided in Rangeley. We served 83 residents last year. The total value of the services was over $38,000. We provided nutrition, Medicare counseling, information and assistance, caregiver respite services. We requested $2,500. So I'm partially here for that tonight, and also all of the social services agencies that the county has defunded have formed a consortium to discuss how we might be able to restore that funding. At this time, the county isn't willing to restore that funding and fund social service agencies. So that's why we're here tonight. This right here includes all the agencies within the consortium, and it has a description of each agency. And then I also supplied you a fact sheet. So this includes the services that not only Seniors Plus provided for Rangeley last year, but also other agencies within the consortium. And it has the dollar value that each agency invested into Rangeley in 2018. So we believe that the return on investment is extremely good for what we're asking, for what historically the county had funded us. About 10 years ago, the county was funding us at about $30,000. That didn't pay for everything, but what that does is the state contracts that we get require us to get matching funding, so that money helps us bring in those state dollars to these communities. So it might not be the biggest part of our budget, but it's extremely important for us to remain in operation. So since the county defunded us, we've laid people off. We had to instate a wait list for Meals on Wheels at one point. So we're here tonight asking for your support. Ideally, we'd like to have full funding at the county level, so that it's an equitable distribution for all the towns within Franklin County. But that's not possible at this time, so we're looking for your support.
Okay, thank you. Two things. Tim Pellerin is no longer the town manager. So in that introductory letter, you might want to change that to John Madigan. Secondly, I think this warrants a presentation to the full board, not just the three of us.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to contact the town manager, schedule a date, and get on the agenda.
Okay.
All right, it's worth being on the agenda so we can get some other folks in here that are part of maybe some of the recipients of all this.
Excellent. I will
You have
do
any
that.
questions? Comment to John. You have any questions?
Actually, I just wanted to know if you had put in any requests to Rangeley Plantation, Dallas Plantation, Sandy River Plantation.
We sent a request. We've sent a request to every town in Franklin County.
Okay, all right. I only ask because some folks just see Rangeley as, you know, the sole town to come to for their monetary requests, and you could certainly get farther with including the plantations as well.
Thank you, Cindy.
Mhm.
Shelley?
Good.
All set. John?
I just wonder what your process is, because these kind of requests, we get a lot of them. Don't you have a time in the budget process to invite all of these requestees to come in and present it not only to you, but to the budget committee as well?
We
Yeah.
do. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we do. We typically will choose a date to have all of the donation requesters come in, and you've got the budget committee there, Board of Selectmen, any public, and of course all the other requesters there. So it's one shot and you're hitting a big audience. So that's later in the spring
Yeah,
typically.
we'll schedule that. You're in getting into the budget season now, so your timing is pretty good, but still I'd like you to go through the
They have to
town
sign
manager.
something.
Hold on. Yep.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
My eagle eyes over here. I love it. Go ahead, Tracy.
I've taken a call from Seniors Plus, and I have the lady's name that I'm going to contact when it comes time for the donation request meeting to happen. So she's aware that I'll be getting a hold of her when the time comes.
Thank
So,
you. I will
you're
be
welcome.
back.
Good. We good, everyone? How about you, sir? You all set?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Anybody
thank you.
else in the
Great
public?
information.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you for
have a good,
coming.
safe journey home.
Steve,
Yeah.
You might
One
want
more
to
thing.
drop one more packet off with Tricia, our clerk, so she
you
has that
missed
for all.
Darrell at the very beginning of the meeting, downtown revitalization.
Okay, I'll get right back to Daryl.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
I didn't even see it there.
You gotta wait.
Right at the top of the agenda.
Sorry, Daryl.
That's quite
Go
all
right
right.
ahead.
As you're aware, we've been working on the downtown revitalization over the last 10 to 12 months to get this ready to go and get to the implementation stage. And the State Department of Economic and Community Development at the end of December approved it. And then the next step is to have the council approve it so that we can then go forward to implement priorities as we go through the priority list. And it's a good deal for the town. I think it's going to open up investment and a few other things by having this in place. And I'll be available to guide through the process, what all that means to for, not just for grants, but for infrastructure and other things that will benefit Rangeley for businesses and tweaking the business mix and getting some of the infrastructure where there's bad sections of sidewalks and streetscape and all those things we discussed at the meeting this morning. So I'm excited about that, right? I think Ray Pierce did a good job with this overall. Occasional grammatical or spelling error aside. I think we're good with that. And the meat on the menu, of course, is the piece which is the actual action plan. So one of the things, this downtown revitalization plan is the keyword action. So it's not a plan to just be talking about a plan, but to actually have action steps that you can tackle during year number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. And it's a flexible document that can be prioritized by the needs of the community. So I'm excited about that. So that's why I'm here.
Good. Anybody have any questions? I have a question for you. In the action plan summary table, in the long-term year 5 to 10, under the 10-year, it says initiate a parking study.
Yeah.
Nowhere in here have I found, and I'm not saying it's not here, I just haven't found it. A discussion that you've had with the state relative to our diagonal parking in town and how the future anticipated view would be,
Yes.
aerial view. Well, are we gonna still have diagonal parking, or is that?
Funny you should mention that. Hot off the press today. One of the things that we picked up on is that in the page 1 of this month, 1 through 12 during year 1, where we have initiate village wayfinding signage, it also should have said parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's ongoing. DOT is being contacted. I already was out there counting diagonal versus parallel spaces, what the net loss, having at least one handicap spot would be. And then we are working through the Rangeley Region Economic Opportunity Committee to do just that, to do a quick study. I've already talked to Ray Pierce about it. Can you give me just, a good, just pennies on a dollar, little plan and say, hey, this is what it is. I'll sit with them at their office on screen when they pull up the schematic and just look at it, and then DOT would rather have parallel parking. And when I look at the stretch of diagonal parking, it's obviously easier, you don't have parallel park, but you see the long bed pickups, you see a few things. And just for safety itself, we're not gonna lose very many spaces by going to parallel. And then we have a couple other spots that we could do close proximity parking, so that we actually have a net gain of about 7 or 8 spaces. That's why I was out this afternoon checking on all of that. So we're on top of this. It's going to be a priority to look at, and then it's also part of one of our initial implementation requests is to look at that wayfinding signage and the parking. And we have a subcommittee which is already starting to address these issues, and we've talked to the Public Works Foreman as well. So I'm excited about this being one of the first quick, low-hanging fruit items that we could achieve over this first few months.
I didn't see it on the front end. So I
It
thought
should have been,
yeah.
it should have been there.
Do you have a comment?
I do have a comment. It came up in the public sessions that I think Ray Pierce, when they went into it and did their research without talking to the public, they kind of had the feeling that there was a fair amount of parking and that parking wasn't that big of an issue. But as we had the public sessions, it became more and more apparent that it was an issue. And that's why it's brought to the forefront, and that's why that's our first subcommittee. We've started with Keith, Kate Philbrick.
Mark and I dealt with this a long time ago when we were on the board many moons ago, and we actually walked the street and talked about painting, and I have never lost sight of that thing, and I'm sure others haven't as well. But when you go down Main Street after a snowstorm with your plow on and you meet a truck, somebody has to give way. I'm talking a delivery truck of some sort. It doesn't matter what it is. To me, it's a safety hazard now, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And if we caught 4 or 5 spaces, which I can't remember, was it something like 7 back in those days, where if we all went to, it was some time ago, and there was a big public uproar. You can't do this. This is
I've been to those
we
meetings.
had to, but I think it's a safety issue.
Yeah, so we're on the case. We'll act quickly on this, and we'll have it all worked out. We already have a plan to adjust to those net loss of 3 or 4 spaces by, well, Chad knows what the plan is, and Laura does too. we'll follow up on this, get moving. Oh,
Are you
last but not least-
suggesting that the women know everything about?
Ours is.
Of course we do, right?
Hey,
That's
I know if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, yeah, so we need to have everybody on board, but, yeah, there's gonna be a good, resolution to this, and it'll happen this year, and DOT will be, they're the gatekeeper to say yes or no. And so they'll side with, yes, we need to make that adjustment.
Good.
Long overdue, good point.
Thank you. Any other questions for Daryl?
Just, Darryl, did you need the selectmen to vote to accept?
Yes, it's an action item, DECD said that the select board need to vote to approve the plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'll.
You hold on, just 1 second. Are you under any time constraint?
No, but if we wanna get towards implementation, and I know that Dave and Donald.
I don't think they're gonna have any issues with it,
Right.
but
I think that's a good point. I think we should wait and have a full board so that.
if you don't
there's no
mind,
question.
Yeah, that's fine.
we'll grab it the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
I'll
good
make
idea.
sure it's down under 1, 2, or 3 where I can spot it. I'm
I
not,
appreciate
I'm just
that.
kidding with my crew over there
And
too.
then the other thing, you had a really good suggestion a few weeks back. We're gonna also follow this up, piggyback with a major downtown launch social hour
Yep.
at the Rangeley Inn, probably March 14th, give or take a few
20th,
days.
I thought.
Or 20th, first day of
20th,
spring, the 20th,
Wednesday.
Wednesday the 20th.
Mhm.
So, and then it'll be, we'll really promote the
Yeah.
event, we'll have some displays, it's not gonna be boring, dry presentations of any kind, it's just gonna be chit chat, talk about where we wanna see things happen to do the actual implementing.
Is it a hardship for you to be at the next selectmen's meeting?
I could do it, I was here at 7:45 today. Yeah, so I'll just hang out, because we have a morning meeting, I'll just make a full day of it, and,
Appreciate it.
yeah, you got it.
All right.
No problem.
It's 3 weeks because of the holiday.
Oh, that's right.
Well-
The 25th,
Okay.
yeah, the 18th is President's Day, right?
All right,
No
but
point, Tom.
we haven't even touched the calendar yet, so you're still on President's Day right now, the way the calendar shows.
No, you did it,
I think you did it.
you did it last meeting, you voted to
Yeah,
move it
last
to the
meeting
next
was
Monday.
20th.
You mean I didn't mark it on my calendar?
5 PM with the auditor.
I'll
be-
get with the auditor.
Okay.
Okay with that, 25th,
Well, I'm-
That might not be updated in your binder.
just have a little shorter.
Yep,
window.
so we're on the 25th now, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
But great comments, thank you
25th.
so much, all right.
You know, if this is gonna be a hardship for you on the
Not at all.
25th in terms of
None.
time frame and getting this implemented and making all of your, tell us right now, because I
No,
just,
it's not a hardship, because if anything, I'll have some additional news to report based on some of the things I'm working on right now.
That's
in
perfect.
the interim,
all right, thank you.
yeah. My release to go?
What's that? Here, actually, stay for the meeting, no, I'm just,
Safe travels, Daryl.
thank you very
Thanks,
much,
everybody.
Daryl.
Bye, Darryl.
Oh, are you okay for your presentation?
Good job. Good job. Boards and committees, under the airport commission meeting under number 5 here, I do have, no, I got that resolved. We have a report from the airport commission meeting, minutes from October 9th, talks about all the things that we've all talked about. If you have any questions, comments, yeah?
I didn't know, Steve, if Laura wanted to speak under the public to speak portion, before we lose
For
her.
boards and committees more.
Boards and committees.
We
Okay.
have downtown revitalization.
Revitalization plan
Go.
update.
It's a sub-
Did you have anything you'd like to say, Laura? We can snap this up real
I
quick.
brought it up as a
Wherever you want me to do it, I'm here for the duration.
Perfect,
so-
right now it's fine.
Right now it's fine. Did you say anything about it, or coming in blind?
just
Sorry,
that
I'm
you
late.
had brought it to my attention and Shelley's aware of it and you were gonna be here to
Perfect.
talk about it.
Okay, so this is just as a result, kind of a meeting that myself, David Miller, the president of the Range Lakes Heritage Trust, or the director of the Range Lakes Heritage Trust, and Rob Welch, we went to Augusta to meet with Maine Department of Tourism and the Northern Forest Center, and as well, Carol Ann Willett, who's in charge of destination marketing. Anyway, we went there saying, let's update that on what's going on in Rangeley. We've got a downtown revitalization plan, we've got all sorts of great stuff going on with Rangeley Connects and all that's going on with the airport and the nonprofits, so we updated them. As a result, they just contacted us late last week saying, we'd like to have Rangeley become a site to do what they call a community destination academy. And in my words, this is very exciting because what it will help us do is take the next step on potentially a lot of things, whether it's the downtown revitalization plan, whether it's the Rangeley Connects work that the Range Lake Heritage Trust and Rangeley Health and Wellness, or maybe it's a completely different project. But they basically will come in and do probably 3 or 4 different sessions to a group that we choose of business, municipal, and public leaders. And they will bring in experts from across the country and across the state to educate us and to work with us and go into the next step. So for an example, they did this in Moosehead, and they brought in Nancy Marshall to do a 1-day session on how do you market yourself as a destination. And they had, there's a national consultant called Joe Venuto who comes in and works with people to how can you become an unforgettable or create an unforgettable customer experience. So those are just some examples of the types of things they might do with us. They are asking us to go through an application process, although they told us that we're at the top of their list, Rangeley, although there are other people applying. They want to do it this spring, which means April or May. And it does require an upfront payment on our part of $2,500 with the anticipation of getting somewhere around $10,000 just to start with in terms of matching funds from them to do whatever project we come up with. So that's a quick fire hose. So we, as the Rangeley Economic Committee, voted this morning to go ahead with the application process pending your guys' approval. And that's why I'm here today. We didn't want to wait till the 25th because this we do want to get done as soon as possible.
And the fee part too was that not necessarily that it would be something that the town would completely pay for. It would, for people that want to participate, there would be a fee for them to participate in it.
And as well, we anticipate that other organizations will be
Right.
willing to contribute as well. The chamber, I have talked to Karen at the chamber, and she's all pro this thing. I haven't specifically asked her on the money, but.
Right.
Has anyone reached out to Greenville, the town of Greenville, to see how they liked the process?
We didn't. We just got from the feedback from them, but and there's a write-up on the Northern Forest Center's website, which I guess could be biased because they're doing it, not the town, but you're right, that's a good point. We can go ahead and do that and certainly get their feedback on what to do or not to do and how to best utilize it.
Yeah, I mean, if they have suggestions on what they wish they had done, be curious.
So,
And this sounds great. But,
Yeah, so we do have, and jump in if I'm misspeaking, but we do have money put aside for Rangeley economic development from last year. So I don't believe you need to vote to whether you pay for it, and we frankly don't know who's going to pay how much, but I think we're just asking for your approval to go forward with the application process. Don't even know if we'll get it, but just so that we can go forward with the application process.
Just, Steve,
Go ahead, John.
for the numbers, it sounds like if we come up with $2,500, that could generate a $10,000 project.
Correct.
Relative to the funding she just mentioned, money left over from last year, is there $2,500 in there? Anybody know?
It's in a reserve fund as far as I know.
We should be 20,000, we haven't touched it yet.
So there is money available in that
For
fund
that.
that we could apply towards that, correct? And that wouldn't impede your future funding requirements, would it?
No.
Any other questions?
I think there's more, there's also funding with the plantations as well.
There is.
that's right, yes,
That-
that they
yeah.
approved for the Rangeley Economic
Right.
Development Committee.
So are you suggesting we wait till we find out what the level of funding is from them before we kick in the balance?
No, I'm just saying just to start the process, and then by the time the application is ready, have the game plan of how it's gonna be paid for.
Make a motion.
I'm just so moved.
I'll second it.
Make a motion to give approval to the Economic Development Committee to move forward with their application.
With funding requirements based on their, whatever they find later
Whatever the
on,
calculation.
relative
they
to
end
other
up
plantations
doing.
commitment. And would it,
Organizations.
I'll second that, by the way. That's, Let me ask you a question. Is it, it seems to me that this is gonna behoove not only Rangeley, but other nonprofit agencies and I would, correct in my assumption?
Exactly.
So wouldn't it make some sense to contact a number of those as well in terms of,
They already have, the trust has said they're willing to, they want to be involved and are willing to put in some money as well. So, I'm assuming you were meaning money-wise.
yeah, I'm also thinking of like the Forestry Museum and the Health Center and, I mean, there's a number of,
Absolutely.
there seems to be some spin-off benefits that are, they could participate in. It reduced everybody else's expenditure into this thing. And
Exactly. And the chamber as well.
Right.
Yep.
yeah,
It's just another
Yeah.
way to bring everyone together, like Laura was saying this
Yeah.
morning.
yeah, I
Everyone
agree.
on the same page.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Want to vote?
Sure.
Good one.
Just say yes.
All in favor? No opposed. Okay,
That Mark, question.
yes, sir.
And that previous item on the airport commission, October 9th, regular week, what was that, just minutes?
Just a minute.
Okay.
Are there any other minutes from, was this the last meeting, was in October?
We didn't have it until this past week. We gave you a bunch of minutes just the previous meeting last week. So this
No,
is-
no, no. What we talked about was the results of last week. We haven't seen those minutes yet.
They haven't been approved by the airport commission. and put in the
Correct.
packet.
Yeah.
So the last minutes.
So
It's always a meeting
the
by
minutes
the
that was,
airport
the
commission.
last meeting they had was in October, which
Yeah.
Larry had indicated to everybody that night.
Hmm.
Yeah. Nothing to talk about in between is what I remember the quote being.
We got the largest airport project in, ever, and there's nothing to talk about?
Well, I gave that some thought because I thought that as I sat in the meeting, I got the last 20 minutes of the meeting. Their involvement in the construction project is, well, they don't have an involvement in that. There's no oversight from the advisory committee in any of that.
There are updates, though, it's the airport commission, wouldn't they want
Well,
monthly
I can't address that part.
updates?
Yep. If you'd like, though, I'll speak to the commissioner about, the chairman.
I just think it's unusual, that's all, it's my opinion.
Is that a request? Why don't I do it anyways, and that'll
Okay.
I'll get some answers for you on that. All right, next. Disbursement warrants, AP, FY 19, 30, et cetera, et cetera.
I'll make a motion to approve AP warrant number 30 in the amount of $277,435.65.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. So, we gotta stop for 1 second, and I can mark on my paper here. We're calling this, Community Destination Academy Program, and we move to allow them, to encourage them to go through the process. We would find funding, correct? All right, so Shelley and me. Okay, thank you. Any correspondence from Red Cross? Hang on. We received a thank you letter from the American Red Cross. We're part of the Central and Mid-Coast chapter of the Red Cross. Our generous support we receive, and we can assist our neighbors in crisis throughout our communities. Our donation total was $1,000, and Jim Bouchard and Linda Williams sent us a nice thank you letter. If you'd like to read it, I'll make it available to you here at the end of the meeting. Old business, downtown revitalization plan update. Anything?
We just did it. Remember? We just-
Well, that's what confused me. I
Right
just-
there.
Well, no,
And
I
we're
was
gonna
waiting for it
table
there.
that. We're gonna table the
Yeah.
approval for the down.
Okay, next is waste management proposal agreement. John,
I gave you a copy of the agreement with Waste Management. The current one we have was for 5 years, this one is for renewal for 5 years. I did get a chance to review the current one, and found was yearly increase for transportation and disposal in year 2 and 3 will be fixed at 3% per year beginning July 1st, 2015, and years 4 and 5, no annual increase. Well, if you noticed on the renewal one, yearly increase for transportation and disposal will be fixed at 3% per year beginning July 1st, 2020. No mention of year 4 or 5, so I think I should give Mr. LaChapelle a call and see if we can negotiate this. So I recommend we table it. and
Let's table it then.
Talk to them and see
Good.
why they
I took care of my
not
2
so
questions.
generous.
I took care of my 2 questions.
There are a couple of other things that they changed, but basically this is exactly the same contract as what we currently
Yeah.
have had for the previous 5 years.
Okay. You all set with tabling?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. New business. Hang on, let me get to it here. RFP. I'd like to hear from Tricia on this.
Me?
Yeah, your name's at the bottom of it.
Oh, are we talking the mowing and trimming and the cemetery mowing?
Oh, it's,
Oh, okay,
what's the RFP then? I don't have
I
that.
don't know.
For the
Oh,
mowing
okay.
contract
Mowing, that's what I
and the
thought.
cemetery.
Yeah, here we go. First one is mowing and trimming services.
Yeah, I'm the clerk, so I have to sit in on the openings, and I have to do the minutes, that's why my name's on it. But, we had one bid, and we sent it, Keith sent it to all the contractors in town, plus we posted it on the website. And I think it was put on the MMA one, maybe not, but, and we got one bid, so.
Perfect, and it's a local bid.
It's a local bid, it is a current price, there was no increase in price. It stayed the same, so,
Thank you, Chair Smith.
yeah.
Good. Yes, John?
Keith told me he also added an area around the pump station, so it's a little extra work with the same price for the next 2 years as what we're currently paying, so. So it looks like a pretty good proposal.
Okay, we'll take these separately. The first one is a bid submitted for mowing and trimming services. Open bids to Township Shore, okay, open bid. Bees Green Thumb LLC, Chip and Beth Smith for $18,000 the first year and $18,000 the second year. I'm assuming that's 19, 20, and 2021, correct? Seasons of. I need a motion.
Make a motion to accept the bid for Bees Green Thumb LLC for 2-year contract at $18,000 for the first year and $18,000 for the second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor? Second bid is the same company for the cemetery mowing. Again, it's this one is for 3 years, first, second, and third year, at $26,500 per year. Same company, received the same date. Need a motion.
Make a motion to accept the bid from Bees Green Thumb LLC with $26,500 for the first year, the second year, and the third year.
Second.
Any questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. All in favor? All set over there? Chip, exciting stuff is coming. Just might want to. See you later.
Thank you, Chip.
Bye, Chip.
Thank you very much.
See you Tuesday.
Standards for Commercial Wind Energy Facilities Ordinance. John, you have anything you want to add to this, comment on?
I think one thing that's pretty significant is that it probably doesn't really matter whether you have one or not, because all the mountains are in the plantations. There's no place in Rangeley to put these things that anybody can see. maybe in Chick Hill, I don't know, but I don't think they'd be going to a place like that. There's rolls, you know, scenic rolls and things like that, so. I don't think there's any real places to cite them in, that I'm aware of. I may be wrong, you folks have lived there.
Yeah, I think you are on that one, but I do believe that there's a need for it. I know there's a hand up, I'll get to you in just a second. You have any comments on this, Cindy, Shelley?
This came up for a reason.
Yeah, it did. It came up for a reason. It was 2 or 3 years ago.
All right, while you're thinking, I'll go to Mark, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just gonna, I think, one of the few places that it would be practical would be Ephraim Ridge, which is the highest elevation in the town of
In the
Rangeley.
town of Rangeley.
And it's relatively flat, and it's owned by, you know, it's industrial forest land, you know, which they seem to be targeted more than private ownership for those types of projects. But other than that, I don't see many places. I agree with John there, you know, there just aren't many places where it would fit.
Thank you.
Notice there's no offshore wind generation there, you know, I thought you'd be advocating for a line of floating wind towers there from Larry's house down to the town line on Bugle Cove. You know, the way the wind blows, it moves slow.
Well, actually, I'm in negotiations with the Rangeley Plantation, and it's gonna start in front of your camp. And it's gonna- You know, there is some wind generation components that aren't addressed too much, at least in my opinion. One being, they call it the flicker effect in here. I can't put my finger on it this second, but it's in here if you read it. And we're not addressing what is available for, say, homeowners. There's one of them downtown, and if you've ever stood on the beach downtown next to the Episcopal Church when the wind is howling, it might surprise you how much noise it makes.
Yeah,
It does.
yeah.
And, you know, we're concerned about odor from marijuana plants next door. Should we be concerned about next to your house each day? Yeah, I just want to throw that out there for your thought process, because I think it warrants at least some discussion in the future. And then also, I couldn't find it here, and it might be there, but is there an elevation restriction?
There is one with the airport, I thought.
It's not addressed anywhere I can find. And so you might want to think about that too. Just a thought,
Yeah,
just a thought. I don't think it's something we should ignore, that's all, my point.
I thought that there was something.
Well, I couldn't find it.
Like with the tower ordinance, it could only go up so much.
well, I think there were viewscape issues with, the town of Eustis. That's what triggered this, is what the town of Eustis went through on Eustis Ridge. And I can't quite recall any specifics, but there were viewscape issues as well. Because there's so much scenic to, you know, that's a valuable part of Rangeley, and I'll have to look through and see, but I can't recall.
You know, the development that you have up behind Saddleback Motor Inn, not sure what you call that there, but if one of the lower houses put a tower up, and then they're right in the living room window of the house, then the next level or the next tier, I think you might find that, I just don't think we should ignore it. I think there's some issues that need to be discussed, in my opinion.
There are some subdivisions in town that have viewscape protection worked in, but this, maybe John's got something more.
Only on Steve's height concern. Article 38.4.8 was amended to, basically says, no building shall exceed 2.5 stories or 35 feet in height. And then it goes on to say, this restriction shall not apply to farm buildings, industrial structures not used for human habitation, windmills, wind turbine towers, antennas, transmission towers, church steeples, flagpoles. So,
It's not been addressed.
so 35 feet is your height, and these are exempt.
And windmills are exempt.
Windmills
So-
are exempt, so.
Goes back to my point, there's no restrictions for and to use Cindy's vernacular, view shed issues. So I think it should be looked at by the ordinance committee in terms of when. That's my point.
John, what page were you on when you were citing that?
Page 2. Article 38.4.8, general provisions,
Okay,
right under that chart there.
okay,
You see it?
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I was well beyond that.
Anything else in that category?
No, but another one that's in yellow on page 4, which I thought was one of the reasons I thought there wouldn't be many places. Feels a scenic resource or historic site within 2,500 feet of the proposed development. There's a lot of scenic sites in Rangeley,
Yeah,
so, I can't picture with it, you can't put this within 2,500 feet of anything that's scenic in town. I don't know, I'm not familiar with that ridge that Margaret's talking about.
It's on the western edge of town, northwestern corner.
But would that 2,500 foot restriction make that undoable over there, you think? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, there's no historic site up there other than just that little cabin, Nutting Pond would be considered. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Else up there, John?
Yeah.
$19.19 interest rates on delinquent taxes.
This is something that you'll have to decide to put on the town meeting warrant. It's been 7 for as long as I can remember. I'm quite surprised to see the treasurer has approved it up to 9.
Did we change it to 8?
I'm not sure if you did that this year. I didn't really look at it. It looks like you could have, according to this paper. They update this every year. One of the things I've always told people is that whatever the treasurer recommends, that's what we should do, just so that there's no incentive for a taxpayer to, invest their tax dollars in a better yielding, situation, because they could put that in for 2.5 years until the day before it becomes tax acquired, and then the town's got to deal with borrowing money, or getting by, or retaining more money than it should. So it's always good advice to whatever they allow to have that as the amount. So that's something you'll have to, that's something townspeople vote on your town meeting warrant.
Right.
And the other part of that is if you, statute says that if you, whatever you pick for the interest rate to charge people, if you've accepted money in advance or an abatement's given later on, you have to pay interest on that. If you, and you can designate up to 4% less than what you charge. So if you don't designate it, then you have to pay what you charge. So part of that question on your ballot should be 7, 8, or 9%, whatever, and then 4% less would be the amount the town pays in the event of a early payment or mostly, to qualify for an abatement, person has to pay the tax first and then apply for the abatement usually, especially an industrial one or a commercial one. So that's usually where you run into the interests.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. We'll have that, I'll have a recommendation for you when we put the warrant together.
okay.
That's just mostly for your information.
In your experience, John, what's your recommendation if you were to do it right this minute?
That's the highest amount allowed. And I'll tell you why, it goes back to Eastport. We had one guy, they had a military village when they were gonna build a Quaddy Dam electric power thing before World War II. And one guy, and they abandoned it after the war, so they had all these houses they had built for the Army Corps of Engineers. So one guy bought up a bunch of them, he owned at least 20 of these houses that he rented. And back then, interest rates were 13, 14, 15%. The town was charging 6 and 7%. And he did exactly that. He would come in the last day before he lost all those properties and pay those taxes. Well, the town had to borrow money at, even with a municipal rate, 11, 12, you know,
And
and they're taking in 6, so we fixed that in a hurry. And the last year I was there, that guy came in like he normally did, only he got stuck because we went the maximum allowed. He wasn't aware of it. I think he didn't have a whole lot of money in his checkbook after that. That adds up, you know, you're talking 13% over 2.5 years. That can add up on 20 houses. So that actually happened in my career.
Okay, thank you. Homeland Security Grant.
This is something the police chief put together. I'm sorry, the fire chief. And he wrote up a little summary of what it does. The EMA grant is through FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. The grant is for one Panasonic Toughbook computer and one Garmin Explorer. The Toughbook is for multiple projects, including topographical mapping for search and rescue, as well as pre-planning of the town for emergencies. The Toughbook will also something with the inReach to give us real-time location of result of rescue teams. So the town's policy is that the selectmen have to accept grants. So this is something that the chief, you can see all the ones that had been applied for.
Oh, yeah.
And his was one that was awarded for $5,600.
Of which he wants to use 4,949 bucks.
Where do you see that?
If you add up what his request is for the Garmin inReach Explorer at 449, Panasonic Toughbook at 4,400, and the Pelican case to hold said items of $100, you come up with $4,949 and no cents.
Oh, good catch. We're gonna give him $5,600, so we'll have to find out from him what he.
Make sure there's no company parties on the remaining.
Map is right.
$100. That was a joke, Ethna. I was just kidding. He's not doing that.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we accept the, let's see, the Homeland Security Grant in the amount of $5,600 for, as applied for by our Rangeley Fire Chief, Michael Bacon.
second.
Thank you. All those in favor? So moved. Town manager, department head updates.
Just, we missed the budget meeting scheduled last Tuesday. I wonder if you want to set another date.
Yeah, we do. We do.
I did not want to wait until the end of February, though.
No, I know.
No, and unfortunately, we're gonna set these dates without two of our colleagues here with us. We'll just get notification of them. Okay, I have February calendar in mind. Should we coincide with the scheduled, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I don't have another one on this one, it's the other month. Pick a date. Today's the 4th. When do you wanna meet again?
What about the 11th?
Next Monday?
Yeah.
What's your basketball schedule like on that one?
Actually, it's, should be okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
next Monday.
So you want to meet at, what did we say last time, at 4?
We did say it.
4:30?
4, I think you picked.
4 is what we picked last time.
4 o'clock?
Whatever you want.
Yep, 4 o'clock's fine.
So do you want that one to be with the budget committee or just yourselves for the first one?
Yeah, well,
Well,
Yeah,
Cindy and I talked with you, John, earlier, and given the structure, I think more meetings with the budget committee is more beneficial, will be beneficial to us and to them and also to the process. Would you agree?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's meet then with the budget committee, and then we will, at that night,
Decide among yourselves.
yeah, we'll get the calendar filled out so we know where we're going. And that way we can notify the public as well too, so they could be a part of the process.
And then it's rather than having like the employees come and go over their budget with 2 different groups, it would be better off to do it as one.
Yeah.
It's more cost efficient.
Can I just venture into that? Do you mind if okay, so our meetings, Shelley, talked a little bit earlier, we came to some conclusions based on some of John's experience, and that is, the process we have now, in the voting booth, we should have just one group that says this is the recommended budget number. And it's a combination of the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee together, so we should work every one of them
That's
together.
what Jay does. Yeah.
Right, so that way, when it says recommended by Budget and Selectmen, it's because we all worked on it together.
Right.
And that way, each department will only make one presentation, so on and so on. So we'll streamline this thing a little bit better.
And that way, you know, if we do meet together as often as we can, if we have a question for a department head, they're answering the question to all of us.
Correct.
And, you know, it may be a sticking point, well, we think it should be $1, and budget committee thinks another, and if we get one explanation and we can come to common ground.
So one of the other things I've been thinking about since we talked with John earlier and going on his experience is that we should organize this budget selectmen meeting very similar to how we have it here. We'll elect a chair, we'll elect a vice chair, and then let them run that meeting so that when it comes time for questions, it's that simple and we're organized and we're ready. And we don't have all sorts of ancillary questions that get off track. And so, agreed?
Sounds great.
All right, I'll fill those 2 in there. You all set with that, John?
Just another thought, do you want to set like a time limit on
Yes.
a 2-hour meeting? And
Yeah.
then we
Yeah.
should probably schedule which departments will be here to present their budget, and then the next meeting,
Correct.
another
Yeah.
department would be, if everybody's here and they don't get a chance to, probably come.
Right. If you could make it on the 11th and Tracy can make it on the 11th, then we'll be able to then, at that night's meeting, formulate the structure of the group, lay out the groundwork for what we're expected, and then with your input, you can tell us who's ready, as opposed to saying, just as an example, the sewer department's gonna be here and saying, you both know, nobody to hold, give them some more time, you know, let's just,
Yeah.
we'll get that thing orchestrated.
And in reality, Keith is still fine tuning some of the issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got a lot of stuff to do.
Of course he does, yeah.
So, yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so the 11th is day 1, and then we run down that rabbit hole after that.
So 4 to 6?
4 to 6.
4, yep. Any other updates, John? The selectmen's schedule is done. I want to thank everybody for reminding me what I forgot, appreciate it. We got budget committee. Let's go to North Star, unless there's something else you want to bring up.
Just the minutes for the economic development. It was updated for January. That we just missed it.
Where did I see that?
That was actually, you just passed it.
Yeah,
Right before North Star. It was in that. Right before.
not on mine.
Hang on, 10. Go to 10.
I am in 10, right
Oh,
there.
I meant section 10.
Yeah, but we're not there, there's
Oh.
nothing there.
There was something in there.
the same updates that we get from the stuff.
It's just within the-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't ask the other department heads to do updates this time,
Right,
because it's
right,
only been a
right.
week.
Okay.
So, in the fire
Yeah, because
chief
it wasn't with
stuff
the
going on.
minutes from the airport,
This
it
is
was
generally
separate.
regarding with the economic development stuff when
Okay.
they come in, is with the other
Okay.
department head updates, but he's the
Alright.
only one that submitted anything. That's where the confusion is.
Don't look at me like that.
Yeah, I'm looking at you
I
like
went for
that.
my packet.
Okay, we're at North Star. You guys got me screwed up on the Economic Development Committee in the very beginning, that's where I was going to with Daryl at the end, so. All right, North Star. I'm gonna start off by saying, I'm excited to see on line 1 that Phillips will be sharing the load for our North Star commitment. If you read line 1, it says, "We at North Star EMS are pleased to provide ambulance and community services at town of Phillips."
Oh, my God.
I think it's awesome that Phillips is now,
Gonna pay the whole bill?
Tricia, that was just an attempt at a joke. Not a good one. Okay,
So we fool with the bill when it comes next.
Maybe they get the amounts mixed up too.
yeah, they probably a little
I
short.
did check that.
Oh, so you liked hers better, huh? Okay. You wanna go over the breakdown? It's just important to note the total.
Yes, 67,518, which is up a few $1,000, I believe. I don't have my current budget with me. Where's the current?
Do we increase the
They-
rent?
They do say they're projecting an operating loss this year of $13,119. And actually, it's a 3% increase is what they've projected.
Exactly.
Current actual for Rangeley, 65,828, and that's up to 67,518, so an increase of $1,690, 3%. And I understand we take in quite a bit of rent from them as well, don't we?
Mhm.
It's a significant amount. Pretty much pays for part of that safety building.
I think for anybody who questions that this isn't a phenomenal deal, should think back to 18 years ago when we owned our own ambulance service with one ambulance, one crew out. We owned a second ambulance with a catch can crew, and we're spending over $100,000 a year. Well, Mark's right when he says 200, because then we had to factor in all of, I'm talking about operational expenses, but we had to factor in cost of the ambulance, this and that. We negotiated a deal, and everybody, if Mark will tell you, I'm sure he'll agree with me on this one, they were up in arms and worried at the beginning because they were so used to but this is a much better deal and a much better service, and, yeah. We're gonna just put this in the hands of the budget committee, correct?
Basically, there's no,
Yeah.
Do we just
Okay,
put it-
no negotiating it.
No,
We just put it in the budget and
okay.
See if the town votes it.
Yeah. Anybody have communications from the select board? I have one here, do you? I'm gonna just tell you that I was sent a letter here. It's called Open Primaries. It's a request for, please join leaders across our state in calling upon lawmakers to open Maine's primaries to unenrolled voters by completing and returning the enclosed postcard. If you so direct me to do that, I will, but I think this is an area I want to stay clear of. I'm not opposed to asking independents to give them an opportunity to vote in both Republican and Democratic primaries, but I'm not gonna be party to this. Yes,
And that's the definition of unenrolled, it's somebody who's registered.
here, I'll read it to you.
Somebody who's registered.
Yeah, I'll
as
read
an
it to you. The
independent.
definition of unenrolled is put out here. Give me just 1 second, show here. Unenrolled voters of the community are self-identified and are referred to as independents. You can also be a Green Party, you could be anything that isn't Democratic or Republican.
So what are they asking you to do?
Send a postcard in that says we support the legislative act to include all the unenrolls in primaries.
And I'd like to encourage you to do that.
I'm sure you would. I'm just not gonna do it, but it's up to the rest of the board.
So will that come up again at your next meeting?
I mean, probably ought to be in our next packet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Having been a politician,
Yep. What are you talking about, having been?
you know, I first enrolled as a Democrat back in, I don't know, 1972 or something, a long time ago. But the primary is for the party to nominate its candidate. So if somebody wants to vote in a primary, they should enroll in the party, because all you're doing is nominating the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate. The other parties, independents, are so small that anybody can get in on the general election. You don't have to have a primary vote to get you in there. So that whoever proposes things like this doesn't understand what the whole primary thing is all about. They couldn't possibly understand it. To even think that someone who's not a member of the party should be entitled to nominate a person that's going to
They're all-
represent that party.
They all vary. Past supporters in the letter. Democrats, Republicans, and one
They're
independent.
all like 35 years old or less. Think about it. I mean, you know, it just makes no sense to me.
Well, I feel the same way as you do, John. The other issue is that, for me personally, is that they're asking a group of selectmen, me, here, to do this thing and put my name on it as the chairman of the board. I won't do it without the ratification of this board. And although we've been encouraged to do it, I would prefer not to be part of it. So, it's up to you. If you want to read it over and include it in our packet for the next one, we will.
I just included in our packet for the next one.
Okay.
To see.
I'll leave it in this file here, and you can bring it in, and I'll just say that, you know, from my standpoint, you do it individually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not that this maybe makes much sense to you, but see, I think a lot of folks that register independent are disenfranchised, you know, with the two primary parties. And they want to be able to not be committed to any one, but they still want to vote for the best person that's qualified for the job. So sometimes they want to vote for a Republican candidate in the primary because they think he'd do the best job for the people of the state of Maine. And sometimes it would be a Democrat, but to make them either keep changing their status, and, you know, voting status at every primary, I think it's easier just to let them vote.
Wonderful thing about America, you're entitled to that opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm very much against a number of things that are in the current trend. And one of them is ranked choice. One vote, one person. And a lot of people in Maine disagree with me, but if I was gonna represent my community and all of you gathered in this room like other meetings and say, this is what the town of Rangeley wants, whether I disagree or agree is immaterial at that point. I represent everybody in town. So this will be up with the colleagues here. Anything else on that? Thank you for your input, appreciate it. Any other communications? We all set? We don't have any executive sessions tonight. Holy moly, let's have a motion to go home.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone. Go Patriots. Oh, they did go.
Did it go?
I had to do it again because you weren't here earlier. Yep.